All right, we're back with the MaxPreps Podcast. That is our national football editor, Zack, Poff. I am Steve Montoya. We're going to jump right into the rankings this week. Got a couple new teams starting in Florida with Venice. They can sure score.
Yeah, they put up 50 just about every single Friday, and I kind of figured that was going to be a shootout against Cocoa. I did think Cocoa was going to win that game. Brady Hart, quarterback on the other side, threw for 500 plus, but in a losing effort. And the thing that was even more remarkable with Venice, their starting running back Gator Wilder went down with an injury, and then here comes sophomore Macho Jones. He goes for 200 plus total yards, 3 touchdowns. He was huge in that game. And then, Winston Watkins Jr., he's been a stud ever since he transferred over there. He's playing both sides of the ball. He had a big game on both sides, too. So, big win for Venice. They go from unranked all the way to number 19. And they got IMG coming up in a couple weeks. Was looking forward to the game this week for IMG, but that game just got canceled against Central. So that'll be IMG's next biggest test on October 4th, I believe. So.
And then in Ohio, Massillon, Washington, out there, big win this past week over St. Edward. They're familiar. They've been in our rankings, but this week they come in at number 25. Yeah. Big win for Massillon, beating another powerhouse in St. Edward. Yeah,
third straight year they beat St. Ed's too. And St. Edward, always a premier program in the state of Ohio. So this time they did it on the road. The last two were at home. So impressive road win for Massillon. Things don't get any easier for them. They got DeMatha coming in this Friday, so that should be another big-time game. But, they balled out on both sides of the ball. They got a very good defense and a strong running game. Good quarterback in Jalen Slaughter, so that'll be a fun one on Friday. But, Massillon back in the top 25. Impressive win at St. Ed's.
All right, I'm going to go a little off script here.
All right, good. All right? I like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we get to the big games of the week, we're kind of at that point of the season where the out-of-state games are starting to die off a little bit. And you're getting into conference league play. But first, let's talk about just a little bit what we saw in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
A lot more out-of-state games, big-time games. And we're starting to see some programs around the country almost becoming too good to play some certain teams. We saw something happen this week with Folsom High School. It's been in our rankings where a team had a forfeit just because of injuries and things like that. Do you think certain teams are going to have to start really – we've seen it with Mater Dei, that a lot of California teams won't play them until they get into the Trinity League. But are certain teams becoming too powerful, or they're going to almost have to come up with a national schedule to play teams because other teams are opting out?
I mean, you've seen that too, as you brought up Mater Dei and St. John Bosco. We saw that with Mater Dei this year. They couldn't even get 10 games put on their schedule because a lot of teams in the Southern California area don't want to play Mater Dei. Mm-hmm. I think it kind of works both ways. I think it's also good too because it forces those teams that are more high caliber to have to play teams that are just as good as them. So you see these more out-of-state games. And, I got to give a shout-out to Joe Mamone, Prep Gridiron Logistics. He does a great job of setting up a lot of these big out-of-state games. But, it's unfortunate, too. You see, a scenario like this where Folsom loses a game, and it was, going to be their homecoming game also. Yeah. So, that's tough. The homecoming game is one of the games that, kids have circled. Yep. It's going to be a big moment. And there also would have been a lot of kids on Folsom that don't get to play a lot that would have probably got a lot of playing time this game also too. So it's very unfortunate, but I do think the state of high school football in general just keeps expanding and getting bigger and bigger. I think this year we've seen more out-of-state, more national games than we have in the past, and I think this is going to be something we see more and more, which is great for us in high school football because we do get to see the best teams match up against each other.
Yeah, for sure, and we're seeing it more and more that these powerhouse programs are, like you just said, are willing to go play out of state. They're willing to travel. They're willing to play each other. And we're talking about the elite of the elite programs.
Yeah, 100%.
The traditional high school football games are still going on. Yeah. We're still seeing your two small town cities playing each other. But we're talking about the 2%.
Yeah,
the 2% out there that are almost now being forced to play each other, which is good for a fan. And
Folsom, they're looking for a game Friday. IMG just canceled their game. Well, let's see if maybe we can get IMG to jump on a plane instead of going towards Alabama. Just come a little more out west, play Folsom on Friday.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, and I like to see Folsom's coach on social saying we'll play
anybody, anywhere, anytime. So maybe we got open date Friday. I think IMG would jump on the plane and come out. So
hey, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'd go to that game for sure, man. I'll say this week a little light with big time games. So if IMG played Folsom, that would be the game that everybody's talking about, especially if you got it put together in a 48-hour span. I mean, I would start calling the Folsom guys Dana White having to put together a fight this fast, but it'd be football. So I'd be all for that game, man. Let's get it going. Let's get Folsom IMG Friday.
Yeah, and a lot of people have said, like, hey, is a school like Folsom bad for high school football? I don't think it's bad for high school football at all, because as we're talking about 2% of teams, and those teams are going to start playing each other more and more. So those teams are going to play each other, and your everyday high school football is going to be as good as it's ever been. It's just these elite programs start to play each other more. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Folsom.
Yeah.
I mean, on the other side, the other program that forfeited that game
seemed like they had a lot of injuries too. What I saw, like 21 healthy bodies. So you're not going to want to have guys out there playing the full game.
Yeah.
Against a team like Folsom. I could see an injury happening, something like that, a kid tired towards the end of the game. So, I mean, I understand it. It sucks for both teams, you know. Obviously, you don't want to have to forfeit, but at the same time, you got to look out for your players. You don't want someone to get hurt.
Yeah, and football's a different sport. It's a contact sport. Their injuries can happen. If it's something like baseball or softball, then somebody's just striking out a lot of batters. You're not getting hit. There's not somebody 6'7" going up against somebody 5'10", 150 on the other side. So football's a different sport.
And also, too, that's why it's important for leagues to have the same type of competitive balance, where you want teams to be kind of equal in league play, so you don't run into this problem, down the road, because, you look at a Trinity League, they do a great job of having the best teams in Southern California within that area, all in the same league. So it is nice when you see that competitive balance. Obviously, Folsom's in a very good league also too. So
Yep. And sometimes too, leagues, football is different than other sports, because the team that forfeited has very good soccer and other sports. So sometimes football is just different, and you may see more of that where a football league is separated. We already see some teams are in certain leagues for football, but not other sports.
Yeah, and that's how it should be.
You may see that down the road more.
Yeah,
and
I feel like that's how it should be. You want the best teams in those leagues within, a close proximity to each other, so the travel is obviously not crazy, but you want to have, fair and equal play, and that's what you can do by having different type of leagues for different sports.
Yep, and the great thing is the NFHS participation numbers came out. Football is still going. High school sports is still on the rise. So everything's good. It's just a little different landscape of how things are playing out, where we're seeing more and more of these big time clashes. But that's good for high school football, and it's good that your traditional high school football carries on as well under the Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, we were talking to Dia Bell last night on an interview I do with Spotlight 39, and he was just talking about how great it is for him to get better as a player, because he's played Milton out in Georgia. He played Miami Central, played Shaman on Madonna. At the end of the day, you're going to get better as a team and an individual when you play the best competition, because they're going to teach you your flaws and how to improve. And it's important for these type of teams to play these type of games, because when you get to playoffs, you're going to be ready, and you're going to hit adversity at some time. Yep. And it's better you do it in the regular season. You're ready for it when you get to the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well let's look ahead now to some top games. Obviously, the headliner IMG and Central. You just got news that game has been officially canceled. That was going to be a great game of
and obviously, hopefully,
teams.
It matters staying safe, and
of course,
everybody in Alabama and on the East Coast there. Obviously, we hope everybody stays safe and the hurricane isn't too bad. So.
Yeah, for sure. And so we'll look to the next game. We'll go back to Massillon, and they have DeMatha. DeMatha is always a good powerhouse program. Their only loss this year is to a ranked team in Archbishop Spalding. So what do you like in this one? Yeah,
this should be a good game. Also, too, that DeMatha game, they lost 26-10 to Archbishop Spalding. First game of the year. Yep. So, might be a little raw and kind of getting still fine-tuned. And they're playing really good right now. They've dominated the last two opponents. They beat Roman Catholic last week, who is an undefeated team out in the Philly area. So that was a big-time dub for DeMatha. I just think Massillon's too good on both sides of the ball, especially with this game being at home.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect Massillon to win this game. I expect a close game, though. DeMatha's got some dudes. Bud Coombs, running back, he's a big-time dude. He's also a standout baseball player. But I think Massillon's just going to be too good on both sides of the ball. I'd expect them to improve to 5-1.
All right, and then in Georgia, got a battle of undefeated teams, a couple top 100 teams in Thomas County Central and Lee County.
Yeah.
Good game out in the Peach State.
Yeah, I think ththese two teams are kind of going to be the biggest threat to Milton, along with Gainesville in 5A to win a state title. Thomas County Central, this is a team, they're 5-0. They had to replace some key players, but they're still playing at a high level this year. They ran the table last year, won the 6A state title. They've kind of owned this series with Lee County, too. I think it's 23-3 all time. They've won the last two meetings, I believe. Actually, just the last meeting they won last year, and Lee County won the two before that back in, I think, 17 and 18. But Lee County's got this dude, Osman Kromah, stud running back. He's been playing at a high level since his freshman year. If he has a big game, I could see them winning this one, but I think Thomas County Central is going to find a way to pull this one out, too, in a very, very close game. But both teams 5-0 for a reason. I mean, these are two of the better teams in the state of Georgia.
All right, well, we got a battle of South Carolina, North Carolina, arguably the top two teams in their state.
Yeah.
I know that you could make a case for a couple other teams, but West Side 4-0, and then you have Weddington out of North Carolina, a good kind of Carolina
Carolinas.
clash.
Yeah. This should be a fun one, man. This is a matchup of offense versus defense. West Side has a very, very good offense. They got Cutter Woods at quarterback. He was our 2023 MaxPreps South Carolina Player of the Year last year. He's a 2025 South Carolina commit. He's probably playing even better this year than he did last year. So he's having a huge year. He's got a couple of stud wide receivers to get the ball to. But you look at Weddington, this is a defense allowing, I think, like 7 points, 6 points per game, under 8 points. So they got a great front four. And then you got Thomas Davis Jr. at linebacker, one of the top recruits in 2026. His dad, Thomas Davis, was a standout linebacker for the Carolina Panthers for a while. So this is offense versus defense. I'm going to go with the defensive team here. I think Weddington's going to hold it down, and they're going to give North Carolina bragging rights over South Carolina in that one.
Hey, that's what they play for in that game for sure. All right, well, that's the end of the podcast. Thanks, as always, for joining us. That is Zack Poff. I am Steve Montoya. Thanks for tuning in.